Hey channel, Fernando from SkyFi Audio. Well, today I've gone through the shop and I've assembled one of my absolute favorite systems. And the beauty of this particular one is that it can be had in both vintage and modern. So stay on, it's going to be a short video, about 10 to 15 minutes. I'm going to go through why this is the way to go if you want to save a bunch of time doing research. So a couple of things before we get started. I have a playlist called Killer Systems where we feature a bunch of these sort of put together things. I'll put a link in the comments for you, and our website skyfi.com where you can see some of these components and a lot more. Now let's get started. So this is my absolute favorite vintage slash modern system, and the way I call it vintage slash modern is because it has a vintage look, which I love, but it is modern in this particular iteration. That's C22 preamp from Macintosh, is a current unit, as so is the MC275. But guess what? They've been making both of these for decades and decades. This is a reissue of both of them. So if you wanted and you like the look, you could source brand new models from someone like us if you're local, or another Macintosh dealer, or you could find vintage equivalents. But unfortunately, when it comes to budgeting, both the vintage and the current ones are going to be priced pretty similar. The vintage stuff from Mac is very desirable, especially in these two pieces, the C22 and the MC275. So don't expect a savings, but if you're into vintage and you like the sort of feel and look of vintage stuff and the ownership of it, then by all means go for it, because they're great performers, even the 50-year-old versions of this. Now, same for the Heresies. The Heresies have been made for decades and decades. This is iteration number 4, the best one they've ever made, mostly because they finally ported the cabinet. So this large 12-inch woofer is ported in the back and produces another 10 hertz of great bass. If you haven't heard this speaker, absolutely go for it. I'll put a review of this in the comments for you as well, because we're huge fans. Now the turntable is a different story. The LP12, it is in fact made today, but it's super expensive. So on this one, I suggest you just go find a vintage one. At any given time, we've got 3 or 4 of these versions in stock, depending on the ARM and cartridge. You know, you could have the whole range between, you know, pure stock units to highly modified ones. We've got one on our website right now where almost everything's been replaced except for the springs, so it's barely a lin anymore. But the LP12 has been known over the years to be super upgradable and a great piece. In terms of dynamics, there's a full range speaker. Expect to hear great bass in a mid-sized room. I wouldn't use these for a very large room. For that, you're going to want something a bit bigger. Maybe the Scalas, which is my favorite speaker from Klipsch so far, or a set of Fortes, which is what you've got down there. If you're new to Macintosh, the 275 indicates 2 channels at 75 watts per side. This one uses 4 KT88s, producing 75 watts. Now the tubes are glowing green, but they're really artificially glowing green. Tubes generally glow orange, as you can see on the KT88 over there, but Macintosh has used LEDs to light them from below. And not just for aesthetics, but also those LEDs turn color, giving you a status indication of what the amplifier is up to. So if there's a bad tube, or there's a short, or some sort of error, the tubes will change color, which is sort of cool. The C22, as I mentioned, been made forever. It has a great phono section in it. It's got old school ergonomics, even though these are not conventional potentiometers. It kind of looks and feels like it. This is a retro issue of a toggle switch from 60 years ago. It's got bass and treble controls, which I love for vintage preamps. The bass and treble lets you dial in just the right amount of stuff, which is great for vintage speakers because they sometimes are too bright or not enough bass, so you can kind of give it a little boost. It also has a great moving coil and moving magnet section for the turntable. And it's configurable from the front. Most of these controls are buried somewhere, which are a pain to get to, but Mac has taken the opportunity to mimic what they did a million years ago and put them in the front. Volume control looks conventional, but it also has a remote control for it, which is super convenient. And if I can slide it out a bit, I'll give you a sense of how beautifully the chassis is designed. There we see the complement of tubes, some for the input and output stages, some for the a moving coil and moving magnet, but beautifully built. This particular LP12 is probably 20-something years old. You can tell it's not the oldest version by the power switch with the LED built into it. It's got one of my favorite tone arms, which is the Lin ETOC. And we don't have a cartridge specified yet, but that would probably get something in the order of a Sumiko Blue Point, or maybe a step up into the Songbird. We also do a bunch of custom clips. If you want a different color, a different finish, we often customize these for clients. As you can see, this one, walnut, matches really well with the piece of the rack that is right there. Here's a vintage C22. Sorry for the glare. These Mac pieces are really hard to photograph because of the glass fronts, but you get an idea of what they've done here. Same sort of glass with metal on it. These are the toggle switches we were talking about. Input select, balance, and volume. So this is 1960s, 1970s, old tube driven as well. So if you're new to HiFi and you just kind of want a quick shortcut into a great system, you don't want to spend hours and hours reading reviews and auditioning stuff. If you're the kind of person or an audiophile that just wants to go right to it, this is a great system to put together. Now, if you're local in our marketplace, we can supply the Mac pieces brand new. If you're not, let's find you a local dealership that will help you do that, or find you some vintage pieces, which we have tons of. And give you an example, this is our inventory for pre-owned and restored Macintosh. We call this the Wall of Sound. We've got probably 40 pieces in here, all restored or serviced or in perfect working condition. Anything from C26s, 28s, MC240s, you name it. So give us a call. We have a great service called the Concierge Service, where we help you put together a system based on a budget. So if you give me a holler or look us up at skyfiaudio.com, I can help you put together a great system, including the right cables, test it all together, and ship it to you. So that wraps it up. Thanks for watching. If you want to follow us, please do so. Our website is skyfiaudio.com. We send an email blast every Friday in case you want to be notified of new things that arrived. You can also shop on our website. And please like and subscribe if you enjoy this sort of thing. It'll help me tremendously. Thanks for watching.